and welcome back to Scrap with Penny, where paper meets story. And today I'm going to be working on some subscriber requests, and I put a little post out and said I was looking for ideas for October because, you know, I think if I can get input from y'all, then it's something that you enjoy more. And so I had two subscribers, Marion Hulls from the Netherlands and Stacy Ober, I guess from here in the U.S. It doesn't really matter. The lady from the Netherlands shouted out that she was from the Netherlands, and I thought that was cool. But they both requested camping. And we're not super outdoorsy, but I have shared before that when the boys were little, I did creative memories style albums. And so there's nothing wrong with that style of album, but for me as a consultant, I was not diligent about doing the whole page. I was focused on getting pictures down into an album and then kind of finishing the page as I had time. And with two little boys, I didn't have all the time I needed. So I have some camping photos from 2002, from spring break. When the boys were little, we focused more on experiences than destinations. And so I've printed these, and I'm excited to work with them. And I'm happy that the quality is as good as it is. I think that I shot these with APS film, and that I actually had some digital files that I picked up from that. So I've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 photos. And I honestly have enough pictures from this camping trip to where I might do a second page on it. And I went looking at sketches, and I came across this one. It's Scrapbook Generation Sketch Support number 31, but I'm going to flip it, and so I'll pop in the image of this, and then I'll invert it so you can kind of see. And it just goes for my penchant, my quirk, that I like my dominant side on the left on a double. And it goes back to journalism, really, and I'm sorry. It's just, like I said, it's a quirk I have. And what I think I'm going to do is on this 3x4 and this 3x4, I'm going to pull in some element cards. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I did 2 2x2s. I think there'll be room for that. And I've got a cut file. I've got a Peartree cut file that I picked up, and it's got the cutest little tent and an evergreen tree and a little backpack. And I'm going to make that be my large shape. And because of the tree is the tallest. Of course, I could flip the cut file, but I'm going to do the cut file as presented, and to me, it would also make more sense on the left. So we'll see how this comes together. And I don't have a ton of camping supplies, but in true, Simple Stories, fangirl fashion, I picked up some of this trail mix. I don't have all of it, and I don't have what I consider to be a good stripe. And I'll also say, full disclosure up front, I don't know where this layout is going. I don't know what papers I'm going to use. And toward that end, usually when I'm at this point in a video, I know what papers I'm going to pull, and I don't. But we're just going to get started because I can sit here and look at it all day long and hem and haw, and I'm not getting anywhere. So I do have the 6x8 paper pad, which gives me everything, all of the prints. And I pulled some of those that I thought would be great for my story. I've got this little plaid, and also for backing the cut file, because the cut file has an evergreen tree, a tent, and I already said that. But I don't have it cut yet because I'm not sure if I want to cut it in a wood grain or cut it in a solid brown. And so we're gonna develop that on the fly. And I'll just flip this in case you haven't seen this. It's pretty cute. I mean, it could inspire a girl to go camping. Not really, not this girl. But the 12x12 sheets that I have are this. This is like kids going to camp. And I don't see, maybe I could fussy cut some of these elements, I'm not sure. But the other side of it is this real pretty orange. And then I've got this piece of paper. And it's this yellow. I'm not going to pull that in. And I love this, but I think it's too big for what my sketch calls for. This is not even trail mix, but I had it stored in there, and honestly I think it goes. So I went ahead and pulled it. It's from Harvest Market. The other side is Harvesty. But look, I mean, these are the same colors. This is the plaid. That's the other side of that. I just have one sheet of this. And then I've got 2 sheets of this. And I'm not crazy about this. So, but these will be where I get the little 3x4 elements. And I don't know which ones I'm going to be pulling. The Memories is good. But, okay. And then for my background, I pulled out this warm white. Because you know how I admittedly struggle with a lot of white space. The other alteration I'm going to make to the sketch is I'm going to even up the exterior margins. That's just another one of my quirks. So instead of this piece of paper being 9 tall, I'm going to cut it at 9.5. And then that'll give me a consistent 1.25 margin around all of the edges. Okay, so I pulled this for the background. And then, of course, because it's camping, I went and pulled some wood grain. So I don't plan on using this dark brown. I don't think it would be a problem. But in my efforts to find supplies, I went deep into my stash. But I just didn't see anything that would work. But look, I have this Cosmo Cricket Mr. Campy. This is really nice, but it doesn't, I don't know. I mean, I might can make it work. And that's on the other side. I'll never use that. This is kind of a pedestrian print, and I was looking for a stripe, but you can see this is more of a barn red, and it doesn't work against that russet orange. And I don't care for this. And there's this. I don't really care for that, and I don't care for that. You could fussy cut some of this, but the design size and the graphic is completely different. And then here's more of that red, and it clashes with the orange. And then here's this. So the only thing that I could work with, in my opinion, out of this is this. And I was thinking about a plaid for the large paper on the right. I don't know. We'll have to see. Because, okay, so what I'm going to do is when I decide my background, then I'm going to cut my cut file. And then I'm going to back my cut file, and then I'm going to let that decide what papers that I use. I know that's really kind of a backwards way to do it, but it's what keeps it interesting around here. And then the last set of supplies I had that were camping related is October Afternoon, campfire. I keep wanting to call it Happy Camper, but it's campfire. And this green could work as a stripe for this collection, but I would have to come in and kind of get rid of the grunge on the edge. And the other side of that green is this plaid, which this, you know, is a completely different color palette than this. Then there's this. I think that's really interesting, and that is super interesting. I don't understand that. And then there's that. And then these are the reverse, you know, sides. And then there's this. And that's the other side of that. And then I've got 2 of these sheets. And I also considered this, but it's kind of a stretch to the aqua in this line. So not a lot there either. Okay? So what I can, oh, and I do have a lot of the Happy Trails embellishments. I've got the brads. I've got the bits and pieces. These are open and laying out on my desk, so I've just got the plastic wrap. The page pieces and the journal bits. So I do have a little bit of fun stuff for the end. I do not have the sticker sheet, and I don't have the full collection, and that's okay. So this will kind of be a little bit of a challenge for me to pull together something out of you know, half of a collection, and we'll kind of see where it goes. So I'm gonna pause the video, and I'm probably going to trim my photos. That's always a good, safe place to start. And I'm going to decide on my background, and then I'll cut my cut file. And then I think I'll be back. I remembered almost everything. So we talk all the time about simple stories and their colors matching across lines. And so I looked at what I had in the Simple Stories family, and this What's Cooking line is actually, there's some pieces of it that align perfectly with this trail mix. For instance, look, it's like this would give me a stripe. So I know there's some pink in it. I'm not afraid of that. The orange is not in it, but I've got it pulled because it's a consideration. And so here's the color palette, and this matches. I'm not certain I'll use that, but look at this. This is great. And here's another soft little pink. This doesn't go. I don't know why I pulled that. Oh, I think these were I had pulled these for another reason. So there's this stripe, and then in the full size, I do have the whole collection of this. I picked it up on sale, I think, at some point from Simple Stories. And then there's this, and then here's this in the full size, and then look at this yellow gingham. So I think I can cobble together. I think if I stay in these options, I can cobble it together. My biggest problem is my stripe, which I could use the gingham as a stripe. And you know, it doesn't have to be literal, but the stripes do always add that little bit of pop. Okay, so I didn't want to come back with some papers in a little bit and y'all go, where does that? Where did that come from? So I am back, and I'm pretty sure I'm going with this wood grain background. And this is the sketch flipped, and this is how I want to place my pictures, and it's kind of driven by the direction they're facing. So I had to rework the layout over here because my boys both were looking kind of that way, and I went with these two journal cards because they're kind of the same style. You know, they've got the little corners decorated the same, and it's the same kind of element. And here's my cut file. I still need to back the backpack, and I'll get to that. This is what I'm considering for my title. This is out of the Trail Mix page pieces, and this is what I see happening over here. And then I see some journal strips here, maybe with some embellishments around it. I was wanting the tallest piece of this cut file to be toward the gutter, and the title, I just don't think that it looks good down here because of the way you would have to justify it and the fact that you'd have trapped space. So that's why I shifted the photos down a little bit. And so what I had said was I was going to get my cut file cut. I considered a khaki, and it seemed too pale, and so this is actually a basil, and it's called Bonbon. And so kind of what I'm thinking for the background over here is this orange. It really bothers me that I'm wearing such a pink shirt, but oh, it's okay. So I'm kind of thinking this here, and I'm thinking I'm going to use this 6x8 piece for the stripe. It's really pretty cute when you look at it in small increments, and I think it'll bring some much needed blending of the colors to the page. And I am leaning toward this as the background over here. I think that it all works, you know, copacetically, color-wise. And so what I need to pick is a paper to mat these and something to back my backpack. And for the backpack, I'm considering this and this. It's going to depend upon what's going to look better on the orange. Maybe this darker color is. Yeah, I think I'm in frame, just barely. And then to back these photos, I was considering, you would just see so little of this, but I thought it would be a fun pattern. But I'm just going to make one decision at a time, and I'm going to have to be creative on the seam on this because I'm only going to get 8 inches tall and I need 9.5. But I think I've got a pretty good start on it. And these 2 papers were from the trail mix, and this orange is from the trail mix, and then this is from the harvest market. So I think I'm going to start by trimming this up, and then I'll trim my other background pages, slide them under, and then we'll make the final decision on this and these backers. So it's coming along. So just working my way through decisions. This is what the paper looks like cut. I need to slide my tree over because it can't go onto that page. And I pulled the yellow in, and of course my stripe will continue up there just like it will here. And I pulled this green diagonal tone on tone plaid in, but it's so similar to that color, it's crazy. And I had planned, I cut my photos just a little smaller than the sketch called for so that I could mat them. So I think what I need to do next is get my white mats cut, and on my backpack I'm leaning toward the other side of this gingham. I'm leaning toward this brown, and what I like about it is that it repeats the yellow. It doesn't scream, hey, look at me, and it ties into the pink that's in the stripe, so, or the pattern I'm using for a stripe. Okay, so let me cut some photo mats. So I am back, and I got my photo mats cut, and I just kind of kept going, doing the next thing. I went ahead and got my journaling typed up. I wanted to do strips, you know, I love my journal strips, but I just had too much to say, and if I'm going to go back 23 years to tell a story, then by golly, I'm going to say what I want to say. So I have, in one of the packs I have, they had these 3 little cute things, and I could also do this so much fun. So it, you know, but I like the way this is layered up, and I had to add in some of the bugs because, oh my goodness, if you've ever been camping, you know there's bugs. I dropped in a tag and another tag. These tags are actually oriented like this, so I turned it upside down. I can cut it off and get 2 tags out of one. I was trying to find a place for this cute little trail mix, but I put the coffee down. I added the flowers. I'm fine with the flowers. I only got 2, so I mean, I suppose I could cut one in half and tuck and repeat, but it's okay. I don't have to have 3 flowers. The other thing, if I were completely nuts, is I could fussy cut flowers. Oh, I don't know. That might be something that looks better in the morning. But I think it's cute, and I'm glad I had this camping story that I could pull out to tell. I'm still not certain on this. There is this little plaid here that I could pull. Let's see. Now that I've got the flowers on there and a little more pink, there's this plaid. I like the idea of throwing some pink in up here because it's like, hey, mom was here. This wasn't just a guy's trip. That's pretty cute, but I think I should stay with flowers, but maybe this one looks better now. I think it does because it repeats this yellow. Okay, so see, this is why we decide as we go. And then if I do that there, I could come here and get a little more repetition, higher contrast. This journaling will tuck under the photo, and I'm starting to get twitchy because, you know, everything's moving around and I want to start getting some stuff taped down. And I think I'm totally to the point where I can do that because I love all these decisions, and I'll just start with my base piece of paper. I'm not going to gut this wood grain, and I'm not going to gut this. I'm just going with it because I can be okay that this is a solid piece of paper. And I don't know if I said this was the Echo Park wood grain. I showed it earlier, but I don't know if I pointed out that it was Echo Park. Okay, so I'm going to put this on hold and tape some stuff down, and I'll be back. Hey there, so I'm back and it's finished. This is actually the day after I did this layout. I finished it up last night, but it was Cowboys and Packers on Sunday Night Football, and I thought it would be better if I just filmed this morning when I was fresh. And I love my football, but I always get a little anxious when we play Green Bay. So I'll just start up here. I've got this Simple Stories Page Pieces title, and I've got that little butterfly there for a pop of pink. And then I've got my 2x2 photos on a white photo mat and my little green circle of hearts. It's 3 hearts for Mom and her 2 boys. And this is my Peartree Cutfile. It's called Camp Out, and it turned out really cute. I did size it down a little bit from its original size. If you were to get this cut file cut by Marie, it would be a little wider than 11 inches. And the way I've got mine cut, it's just under 8 inches. So I was working with my sketch from Scrapbook Generation, and I wanted something to kind of, fill the gap between the photos. And I thought that the cut file was a great idea for a large title. And of course, I flipped my sketch. And then on my sketch, I used journal cards where they called for 2 photos. I think I have 16 photos from this trip. These photos were all kind of related to setting up camp and being at the campsite. The other photos are more of the boys playing in the river. And so I will probably do another layout about that, but I wanted this to be kind of the campsite layout. And I just want to say thanks to my 2 subscribers that requested the camping. A little shout out to Stacy's Ober and Marion Halls. I never would have told this story if you hadn't prompted me or requested some camping ideas. So hopefully you enjoy this. And I don't know how many of you camp. I mean, am I the minority that doesn't camp? In Texas, it's hot for a lot of the time. So we don't live in a climate that's really conducive to camping. And this was in the spring. So this little collection, this trail mix collection, had a fun palette of colors. And I enjoyed combining it with some of the What's Cooking and the Harvest Market. A different color palette to be sure, and I loved working with it. I like the little backpack being in the floral because it's a nod to the fact that I'm there. And I built a little cluster around my journal block, and I added some brads in. So I've got a large brad here, a smaller brad here, a smaller brad here, a smaller brad here. And those are all from the Trail Mix collection. And then I went to my stash to get a neutral dark brown for the camera lens. There wasn't a dark brown in the Trail Mix collection. And I considered putting this little map right in here, but I thought it would kind of compete with what was going on up here. I might could have squinched it down and made it into one thing, but I kind of sometimes forget about my brads until it's too late. And look, there's a third floral element, but I tried to think about where I could work it in, and I thought it didn't really fit anywhere. And that's okay. I can save it for the next layout, or, something else entirely. It's okay not to use all the things. And it's okay to combine 3 collections together. I did work the little trail mix in over here, and I thought that added a fun little pop of green. And then I put this evergreen cluster underneath the flowers and added a little bug, and that gives me 5 little elements over here. And then these 2 tags are what I cut down, and this is the bottom of that tag, and that's the top of that tag. I flipped it for the jagged edge, and I can use these on the next layout. So it's fun to have some more stuff to play with. I like the little bugs everywhere. I mean, to me, that's part of camping, certainly in Texas. And I will say, as far as the stitching goes, I just didn't see anywhere that really called for it. And I think the layout is really nice without it. So
I felt like if I tried to stitch, it wouldn't be cohesive. I could have stitched around these two rectangles, but then where would I have stitched over here? I could stitch around the outside of the paper on the wood grain, but I don't think it would really add a whole lot, to be honest. So that's why I didn't end up stitching anywhere. So I'm curious if you have this trail mix collection, and if you camp, I'd be curious to know what collections you use. Drop a note in the comments and let me know. And if you don't camp, this is a good sketch, a good layout for any kind of travel, anything where you've got a lot of photos that need space or a double page spread. Just a quick note that I'm also going to have this in the playlist, Challenge Accepted. It was a challenge I took on from a subscriber to find a camping story and to pilfer through my sparse camping supplies. And so it's good to be stretched out of your comfort zone every once in a while. Overall, I'm just real happy with it. I didn't have any idea where it was going when I started, and I said that. I will say that the collection, I think, kind of lends itself to girls camping, you know, like Girl Scouts and whatnot. But there's enough in there that I was able to make it work. And I do have some Girl Scout stories I could tell, so those embellishments might see a layout someday. And for my little tag, I used my Aunt Lydia's crochet thread. That's a good staple to have in the house. And I don't think there's anything else I want to say. I hope that you have enjoyed this and that it gave you some ideas. A really good sketch, and you could get 2 more photos on here if you were so inclined, if you needed to get more on there. And as I said, I flipped it because to me, it just makes more sense this way. I wanted the tall tree to be in the center and not, I wanted it to be kind of the focal point of the page. I'll link the playlist for how to back a cut file in the video description. On these 2, I cut it on my silhouette. On the tree trunk and the stakes, I traced and cut that by hand. And on the backpack, I cut that by hand. I think the cut files are a great way to, especially when you don't have a full collection, I think they're a great way to supplement and bolster what you have and kind of help fill some of the gaps. The 6x8 paper pad came in handy for trail mix and the What's Cooking line. And this is also What's Cooking. I love the little index card here. So all in all, I really love how it turned out. And I want to thank my subscribers for being here and being part of our community. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd invite you to hit that button. It'll allow YouTube to put notices on your homepage when I have new videos up. And we'd love to have you as part of our community. And I hope that you had some fun playing with paper while I did. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I'll be back soon with more layouts, videos, and a little stash busted magic. So please come back and crop with me. Until next time, happy scrapping, and remember, this is where paper meets story. Bye-bye.